Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
With all this wonderful weather we're having this weekend, you all opted to be here with us today. So we are thankful and grateful to have you here.
And thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Glad to be here.
So right now we're letting students into the classroom. I'm going to give everyone maybe a minute or so, and then we're going to promptly start. Oh, it's 6:01 on my end. Okay.
Good evening.
Hello. So good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Terry. I'm the program manager with the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning, specifically in the Neighborhood Planning Units area or division. And I would like to welcome you to NPU University. Today's course, we will be focusing in our economic development area, and we will have none other than an introduction to Invest Atlanta. So a few rules we like to go over, and please don't, I'm sorry, y'all, because I'm actually managing, letting people in the class and speaking to you all at the same time. We ask that you keep your microphones muted at all times. Unless we are doing our question and answer portion. We ask that you keep your cameras on in order to receive course credit. If you are actually participating in our citizen planners certification, this applies to you. We also ask to ask a question during the Q&A. Raise your hand to get in the queue. Please don't burst out. I know sometimes you have like a really good idea or something comes to mind, and we just want to respect the order and keep order. So we ask that you just raise your hand, and I'm going to show you all how to do that on the next screen. Also, we hope that you keep all questions relevant to course content. So, as I was mentioning, we've been doing this for 3 years now, so you would think we were experts, but things happen. If you would like to raise your hand, at the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button. If you would click on the reactions button, it's going to have a pop-up. And when the pop-up comes up, you can click raise hand, and then you'll start a queue, and then we can go from there and do our Q&A and acknowledge, hey, if you have a question or answer, okay? So as I was saying, we are here with our economic arm, Invest Atlanta, and I am so happy to introduce Dr. Eloisa Clementich. She is here with her team, and they are going to give us so much information about all the wonderful things that Invest Atlanta does for the city of Atlanta. Dr. Clementich?
Yes, thank you so much, Eshe. I appreciate it. And it's nice to see everyone on virtual Zoom. I wanted to say, here at Invest Atlanta as the economic development arm, we are very excited to really work with communities on identifying what the need is and seeing how Invest Atlanta can help and support. And so you're going to be able to get a deep dive into all of the areas that we have here. And hopefully that will be helpful to set the stage and to begin the conversation about how we continue to support community. And so I am very privileged to be working with some of the most passionate individuals that are dedicated to the work they do. And I know you're going to see that come through as you begin to talk, or you hear from them and go back and Q&A. So just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for being partners. Thank you for being partners here at Invest Atlanta and working together to solve some of our biggest opportunities in the city. So with that, I'll turn it over to the team and we'll get to the good stuff. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, and I'd like to say welcome everyone. Probably speaking to some for the first time, but we're excited to be here for those that have not been a part of this. And so I'd like to start with saying, who are we? Invest Atlanta is an organization. We're the economic development arm for the city of Atlanta. And with that, we have about 6 pillars under the name of under the umbrella of Invest Atlanta. We have the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative, Urban Residential Finance Authority, the Atlanta Emerging Markets, Inc., Downtown Development Authority, Atlanta Urban Redevelopment Agency, and Atlanta Beltline, Inc. We're here for all. And so, Ashley, yes, thank you. So our vision is to make Atlanta the most economically dynamic and competitive city in the world. We strive to do this every day, and our mission is to advance Atlanta's global competitiveness by growing a strong economy, building vibrant communities, and increasing economic prosperity for all Atlantans. And you can read our equity statement and on the side. And so under Invest Atlanta, we have 2 departments that are actual revenue generating departments, which is the Economic Development Department, which consists of, and you'll hear from some of our team later, talks about business attraction, business retention, small business financing, creative industries, tech innovation, and entrepreneurship. And under the community development portion, you will talk about our tax allocation districts, some housing initiatives, commercial corridor development, and neighborhood revitalization. We also have some non-producing departments, which are our support. We could not do without them, which is our legal team, our finance team, marketing, and operations. All of us working together towards economic prosperity. At this time, I would like to sprint to you our residential programs. My name is Vicki Roberts. I'm the Director of Multifamily Housing Bonds. I guess I should have said that at the beginning. Thanks, Samantha. Ashley, if you could go ahead. Next slide, yes. And this you may not be able to see. Hopefully you can see this. I know that these a PowerPoint presentation will be available to you guys after this presentation today. So some of our affordable housing incentives, which have been our bread and butter is tax exempt bonds. It has been in existence since I think 1979, maybe, when it was created, IRFA. And so what this does is allow developers to provide affordable housing using 4% tax credits, low income housing tax credits. And our requirement is that at least 15% of those units are at market rate. And this program allows you to meet one of the requirements is that you have at least 20% set aside at 50% AMI levels or 40% at 60% AMI levels. And so this is a very unique program, and the city of Atlanta gets approximately the ability to issue $100 million in tax exempt bond financing. We also have a program that was issued for our bonds, housing opportunity bonds for multifamily, also single family. And so here in these guidelines these are gap financing tools to help. We know that there's been like a lot of construction increase and interest rates. So we needed to come up with another program that could help developers who have our mission in line of providing safe and quality affordable housing in the city of Atlanta. So this was very creative to provide some gap financing with very low interest rates and still have the affordability period of at least 15 years. And then we have, which is Vine City Housing Trust Fund that was created in 1989. This has been around for a long time. There's still a little bit money in there. This also provides gap financing, but it is geographically restricted, and it's only for the Vine City English Avenue neighborhood. Okay, Ashley. Lease purchase bonds. That is an incentive that we also offer for developers trying to do development in the city of Atlanta. It is mostly, it's a tax incentive, which allows the developer to have a relief on their taxes starting at 50%, and on the improvements and increasing 5% to like year 11, they're paying full taxes. We also have the Atlanta Beltline Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This was created in 2000. Initially, it was 2017. I think. And so we've had the opportunity to use these dollars, but again, it's another gap financing incentive, and there's not that much in the bucket, but these funds are geared towards developments that are interested in doing development along the Beltline. As you all know, just probably from some presentations that have been coming to your MPUs, that land cost is going up, and it's been real challenging for developers to do development in that area. So this also provides an incentive, and it's strictly for the Beltline, not outside the Beltline, but strictly for the Beltline. Along with the Beltline TAD, this is another incentive, and this comes from the tax increment off of the Beltline TAD. And so those guidelines are similar to our other programs in our TADs. And as you can see, the last one, we have various TADs that the team will talk about later on in the portfolio. I also wanted to and those are the multifamily incentives. So I wanted to kind of also talk about a couple of incentives that we have for single family. And so we have an owner-occupied rehab program that was opened up and quickly was taken advantage of, and residents have been, we have been providing services for residents in the city of Atlanta. And you'll see on the next slide, for owner-occupied rehab, we have already helped over 357 residents with owner-occupied rehab, expending about approximately $8.3 million. We also have a 5 down payment assistance programs in the city of Atlanta. And for those requirements, the homeowners need to, that meet income qualifications, can receive up to $10,000 towards down payment and closing costs. They must qualify for a 30-year fixed rate, FHA, VA, or conventional mortgage loan with the Invest Atlanta participating lenders. And so we do have a great team, Anita Allgood and Felicia Neal and Kirsten, who can assist with those programs. And as you can see, we have reached over marketing approximately 37,000 individuals, and have assisted from 2010 to 2022, 1,458 home buyers, expending approximately $25.7 million in down payment assistance. And yeah, so, and I know, Samantha, are we taking questions later, or because I think I saw a couple of questions come up, so I didn't know how that was being handled.
I don't see her right now. This is Jennifer. I would like to do maybe questions at the end.
Okay, cool. All right, so as you know, you will see that we have community engagement requirements, and as part of receiving incentives from Invest Atlanta, we do require that potential developers reach out to the community first, and then which builds up into the MPU. And so in order to kind of monitor that and ensure that they are adhering to our process, we worked in conjunction with the city of Atlanta, with Leah's department, Samantha, to ensure that we kind of streamline that process. And so this is the process that the developers have to do. We did tweak it and make some changes, which all projects that are seeking Invest Atlanta funding, except for those that for the TAD funding programs, will require MPU presentation and to receive a recommendation letter. The recommendation letter, it's clearly references the submitted project, indicate, we like to see the details that are in there, and then whether it's supported, opposed, or opposed with conditional contingent support. Oh, did I miss that? And then we also want the letter contain acknowledgement that the project owner intends to apply for Invest Atlanta funding. We want to make sure that that's in the letter, because that means that they specifically express that. And here is also the requirements. This is the form that needs to be filled out for the developers that submitted to the city, and then they coordinate or let them know when the next meetings are, and they coordinate with the appropriate MPUs and the community. And then, yes, so key dates and timing, these fluctuate just depending on the deals. We would love for everything to come in and it's smooth and we get, 45 days to get it to the board, but sometimes it does take a little longer. We do accept applications, generally any day, but prefer them to come on the first Friday of the calendar month, which allows us time to do our due diligence and vet them and ensure that everything is met, to go to our internal review committee who meets on the first Wednesdays of the month. And then they go to the next level. The main thing is for our all TAD projects go to our TAD advisory committees, which meet on I may not have said that correctly, TAD committees, and they meet on the second Thursday of the month before it's presented to our board. And then all other items go to finance committee, and then they're recommended to go to the board. And our boards meet on the third Thursday of the month. And all of these are open to the public, so it's not that it isn't. And an inducement takes about 45 days. That's a tax-exempt bond transaction. Not every deal is like this, but we wanted to just kind of add this to give you guys a general timing perspective on our projects, and how long it takes from the time it enters the door till it really goes to our board can be 45 days. Okay. And lastly, just wanted to say partnership in action. We look at developers, NPUs, IA dollars, and the impact. Community partnerships working together to create economic impact for the city of Atlanta. And so that's what our goal is. And so here you can see Anita Allgood, my colleague. She's the Vice President of Single Family Home Ownership, and myself. This is our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us at any time with any questions, and we will assist. And now I will turn this over to my colleague, Jennifer Fine.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicki. So good evening, everybody. My name's Jennifer. I'm the Vice President of Planning and Strategic Initiatives at Invest Atlanta on the community development side of the organization, as Vicki alluded to. I'm going to be going over at a high level TAD and other small business improvement grant tools that we have. We're scheduled to have a pretty good bit of time at the end to go through questions. I already see a bunch of questions in the chat. That's great. So we should have ample time to do that. And if we need more, we'll certainly stay on to answer additional questions. Thank you. All right. So TADs in Atlanta, just basic kind of high level overview of what they are, what they aren't, types of projects that they can fund, and how they're managed. So tax allocation districts are called tax increment finance areas, basically, in every other state except for Georgia. And they're widely considered the most significant incentive to help encourage redevelopment in disinvested areas across the country. They are used in every state in the United States. So a very robust, useful incentive. And we're very fortunate to have as many as we do and using them like we do. So first in the definition section, I think it's important just to kind of make sure everybody's aware that, TADs aren't kind of arbitrarily created, and they can't just be created by the city. It's legislated by state redevelopment powers law. That is kind of what sets the tone and the requirements for tax allocation districts across the state. And really at its core, it's just being able to use public funds, which are a portion of property tax, to fund very specific types of redevelopment activities in these areas. So the funding source is what we call tax increment. And that can either be actual increment dollars that are used to help fund projects through the issuance of grants, or you could be pledging future increment to help issue a bond, which has been done several times in Atlanta. We've done both of those funding processes here. And then the oversight and management, we Invest Atlanta, the Atlanta Development Authority, we have been designated by the city as its redevelopment agent. So we manage the city's 10 tax allocation districts. It's important to note that tax allocation districts in Atlanta have to be legislated by the city of Atlanta, but not all 3 taxing jurisdictions have to participate. Each of the taxing jurisdictions, whether it's the city or Fulton County or the Atlanta public school system, they all have to vote, if you will, to participate. And so not all of the taxing jurisdictions participate in all of the city's TADs. The city obviously participates in all of them, but the school board, APS, has not participated in all of them. It's an important thing to make note of because it determines and helps drive how much funding there is in each TAD, and that impacts the kinds of programs we can have. Next slide, thank you. So what kinds of expenses are TAD eligible? So some of you that might have worked with us in the past or hear us speak, we like to say bricks and sticks, just because that's a really easy way to remember that TAD primarily wants to fund hard cost construction costs, the actual physical buildings. So most of our programs are centered towards providing financing for construction projects. We have been able to be flexible and stretching how we can use TADs, but primarily it's for bricks and sticks, hard cost construction. It can pay for some soft costs related to construction projects, whether it's architecture, engineering, those types of professional services, obviously the administration of the TAD, and then some real estate assembly costs. Next slide, please. So hopefully I can make sense of this slide. And I think this one's important because a lot of people that I talk to or have spoken with over the years think that that if a property is in a tax allocation district, that means there's some sort of property tax freeze happening. And that's not the case. So property owners within a tax allocation district continue to pay current property taxes year over year. But what happens is in a TAD, once it's officially been designated and adopted by the taxing jurisdiction, the tax value of all the properties in that individual TAD, that is considered the base. So the tax value when the TAD was created is the base. And so that portion of property taxes continues to go in and be dispersed to all of the taxing jurisdictions over time. It's really the increment, the increase in that tax value that goes into a special fund that then can be used to pay for eligible redevelopment costs to help incentivize development projects in disinvested areas, or can be used and pledged to back bonds to help incentivize development. And then once the TAD closes, then the entire tax value continues to be paid to the taxing jurisdiction. So it's not a freeze, it's just a set at a certain period of time that the taxing jurisdictions get that value in taxes, and then the increase is used to pay for projects. Next slide, please. This one's pretty self-explanatory, just showing the 10 TADs that the city of Atlanta has. The very first one was created in 1992. That's the West Side TAD, and then it was subsequently expanded in 1998. So 2 of these 10 TADs are considered to be complete. That's Atlantic Station and Princeton Lakes. And we anticipate both being closed. They will have run their course within the next 2 years. Princeton Lakes most likely will actually be closed this year. So that's a good thing. That means that they've accomplished their goals and now be closed, and all of those tax proceeds will continue to go to the taxing jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So this is our current toolkit of TAD funded programs, but it's always evolving. When I started at Invest Atlanta about 8 years ago, we maybe had 4 of these. So we're always adding, we're modifying, trying to to meet the need in each of the TADs as best we can, knowing what the constraints of the tax allocation districts are and what the funds can and can't be used for. I will say that Atlanta is considered very unique across the nation as the range of programming projects that we're able to fund with TAD is really dynamic and innovative. A lot of places will either have fewer TADs, but they won't be able to flex the funds like we've been able to do in Atlanta. So I think that's in part to the support that we have, again, from taxing jurisdictions and other partners that allows us to do that. So we currently have programming in 8 of the 10 TADs, ranging from large construction financing programs to small business improvement grants. And that really just depends on the availability of funding in each of the TADs. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a standalone slide, really a snapshot of all of the, the types of projects and how much funding has been deployed and how much we've been able to leverage since the TADs were created in 1992. So you can see over $750 million in TAD funding has been used for a variety of projects across the city, leveraging nearly $9 billion in private investment. And it really ranges, the projects range from all kinds. Next slide, please. You can see, again, this is something we're really proud of, that, a lot of times what you'll see in the paper or what have you will be big projects, and there's definitely a need to fund larger, multifamily mixed use projects. But we use TAD to fund, again, small business improvement grants, parks and open space projects in partnership with the city, small residential redevelopment. The city has lots of vacant and blighted small multifamily properties, and we use TAD to help revitalize those to create affordable and workforce housing. And then workforce development is an area of importance for us, and we provided some funding assistance to the Goodwill Training Center in the Metropolitan TAD. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Ashley now to talk about some of our other non-TAD funded programs.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm Ashley Rivera. I'm the Assistant Director for Neighborhood Revitalization on the ComDev team with Jennifer. And work on many of our TAD projects and the grant programs that we administer, but also through the small business improvement grants that we have had in our TADs for a number of years. We currently have 2 different small business grant programs that are actually funded through philanthropic partnerships with 2 different funders. This one is the NPUB Small Commercial Property Improvement Grant, which is a partnership with the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And then the next one I'll talk about is citywide, not targeted to just one geography, and is a partnership with Wells Fargo. But they both really come out of the way we structured our TAD Small Business Improvement Grants, which does focus on the physical property that the business occupies. Sort of really bringing that TAD legacy of focusing on the bricks and sticks, letting the business applicants really define the need within the scope of the grant that they're applying for. That's most important, but also bring that physical improvement to the property so that the community, the thoroughfare that you're driving down, the commercial corridors in our communities are also seeing those physical improvements. And so they both really have a lot of the same requirements, and I'll get to the nuances between the 2 different programs, but they're targeted to small businesses, and we define that really by the property size for small commercial properties. Both of the programs we have are limited to businesses located in buildings, the total building size of 15,000 square feet or smaller, so that we're able to really make an impact with the funds that we have available. And you can see the business will experience the improvement, but going down the street or being in the neighborhood will also be able to see the impact of those funds. So smaller properties are the focus. And it's really important that it's physical improvements. It could be interior or exterior, but it's things such as window replacements, painting, HVAC, landscaping is a part of the scope, but it's not furniture or fixtures that would be temporary or that could depart if the business moves to a different location. I think that would stay with the property. And both of these have matching requirements of 10% of grant funds matched by the small business. So NPUV, the small commercial grant, is obviously targeting that NPU. So any business in the Mechanicsville, Peoplestown, or Pittsburgh neighborhoods are eligible to apply. And that information is available on our website, and our contact information will be at the end of the slide. So if we have any folks from NPUV or who know small businesses or small commercial property owners that are there, please feel free to share that information with them. We anticipate this program will be open through the summer, potentially into the fall, depending on how long it takes us to expend the program funds. Our commercial property improvement grant, with lots of the similar structure and lots of the same fundamental eligibility requirements, is a citywide grant and has a larger funding base so that it can cover more businesses. And this one will offer grants up to $50,000 to small businesses that meet the same eligibility requirements. In addition to the size requirements, you need to have a City of Atlanta business license, or if you're in the process of opening your business and have yet to get your CO, we can see documentation that the business has applied for their business license. But obviously, being located in the city is first and foremost eligibility requirement. And so we launched this in the fall, really in August of 2022, and the fund must be expired by the end of 2024. So we anticipate the program will be open through 2024. We have had a good amount of interest, and so we really do have a fair pipeline built up. However, all businesses are still open to apply. A key element of this program is that through the goals of the Wells Fargo funding that seeded this grant, is to really target minority-owned businesses in disinvested areas of the city. And so we use our One Atlanta economic mobility strategy, which identifies those areas of the city most experiencing disinvestment. And so those have received priority. And currently we are allocating approving funds to businesses located in those geographies. And we've currently approved 28 grants worth just over $1.3 million. So we're approximately 1/3 of the way through this program's budget. So this one is a good one that will sort of put lots of funds and an impact into communities that really need it. We'll be able to see the impact to those physical small business properties that are along our thoroughfares and in our little commercial nodes. But also really get lots of funds into the hands of businesses who typically have not been able to access lots of financing and capital over the years, and hopefully increase the wealth and the long-term operational capacities of those businesses. So this is Jennifer and my contact information, our email addresses, as well as website link. Please go find information on our website about TADS or about any of these programs that are available. Reach out to us if you have any questions or have anybody who you think would be a good fit for any of the programs that we have. And I'm going to turn it over to our small business team, Lonnie and Cynthia Freeman.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Good evening, everybody. And so I'm delighted to have a discussion with everybody that's listening to our conversation today on small business. The Invest Atlanta, which used to be part of the Atlanta Economic Development Corporation, back in 1981, during Maynard Jackson administration, began to finance small businesses for the first time in the city of Atlanta. So we've had the privilege of working, I guess it's about 42 years or so, working with businesses in the city of Atlanta during that time, working through every administration of the city of Atlanta since Maynard Jackson. But we're delighted to kick out this program by a new funding source, which is Wells Fargo through United Way. And of the $20 million that we received as an organization, 5.7 million that has been set aside for the Atlanta Recovery Loan Program. And what you will see in our presentation today is that every time we have an opportunity to get additional money, we look at finding and filling gaps in the financial needs of our small business community here in the city of Atlanta. So this program here provides financing between $25,000 and $100,000 at an interest rate not to exceed 3%. And I want to emphasize here that Wells Fargo has told us basically that they did not want to see our loan fund be over a 3% interest rate. And we gladly said, no problem with us, because we kind of live in the low rate industry in terms of all of our loan programs have been low interest. And so that was just good news for us to be able to work with. We've got the interest rate, as I mentioned, at 3% or less. And to date, I would say we have approved, I know, about $1.2 million of those funds already. We're closing quite a few already, and we anticipate this year, 2023, being a good year for us to continue to move. So I would encourage everybody that's listening to this presentation to, by all means, consider applying for financing to Invest Atlanta for the Atlanta Recovery Loan Fund Program. And so the funds can be used to assist small and medium-sized businesses and also revitalize neighborhood areas in the city of Atlanta. Part of the target area for this is minority businesses, businesses in serving in underdeveloped areas of the city of Atlanta and neighborhoods that need to be revitalized. So this fund here is meant to do that. Now, I would say this too, that for the first time ever, we're able to now finance home-based businesses within the CDIA, the Community Development Impact areas of the city of Atlanta. And for businesses that have been home-based for 2 years successfully. I think we all realize that a lot of small businesses that operate from their home, where the owners are actually working in another capacity somewhere else for somebody else, when they file their tax return, they show losses because of this way of reducing their tax base. But the thing about it is that for our success to go forward with helping you as a small business, you have to show us that you have already been operating successfully as a home-based business for at least 2 years before you could actually qualify for this particular program. But those of you who might be home-based and businesses, it's a good opportunity to look at that. The financing, the financing can be up to, as I mentioned, $100,000 in total financing available on that. And then also, I say the main thing too with this program, because while we also looking for new things we can do with money to assist small businesses, that for the first time we can also finance businesses directly at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, and that could be a game changer. We financed over the years. We financed Popeyes, one of our franchises we financed historically over the years, and that it went on to become the highest grossing Popeyes, not only in Atlanta, not only in Georgia, but also in the entire United States of America, and also internationally. So if you find a Popeyes anywhere on this planet, the highest grossing one is located at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. So we think this is going to be a game changer for a lot of our small businesses who are looking at growing and expanding and accessing capital. So these funds can be used to help you acquire commercial property, renovation, equipment, furniture, fixtures, working capital, and inventory. I know lately we've been able to successfully finance several projects where the business was looking at trying to add on additional staff to grow and expand its operation, additional management team, employees, and this fund has been able to assist them in being able to make that become a reality. Next slide, please. So continuing the funding of Wells Fargo, our second program is the Atlanta Commercial Down Payment Assistance Loan Program. We got $3.5 million set aside for that program. To date, we've actually closed one transaction right at about $200,000. The total project cost of that was $2.2 million. That is going to be a very good program, project for us as we move forward. So direct loans in this program between 20% of the total project cost. Now we realize that as we the goal is to finance areas in undeveloped communities in the city of Atlanta. So we realize on the cost of the property for us to look at assisting those particular people who have interest in doing that. It needs to also include renovation in addition to just acquisition of commercial property. So this program here provides a 20% participation on not only acquisition, but also on the renovation that's necessary to get that property ready for your particular operation. The minimum loan size is $25,000, max is $200,000. Interest rate between 1% and 3%, and it's fixed. And this is where it gets very interesting. So it's a 10-year loan note, and it's amortized over 25 years. As long as the company maintains and doesn't have any clawback issues taking place during that 10-year period, drum roll, please. The balance of the money can be converted to a grant. And so, if you've got a loan that's amortized over 25 years, you still got a lot bit of money still to pay on that loan after 10 years. So this one allows you to actually convert that balance of our money to a grant. And that's really a game changer, I think, for a lot of people looking at trying to acquire commercial property. The requirement is that you have to occupy on the building you're getting into at least 50% of the space. The other part of it could be leased out if that's something you're trying to do. But there is an opportunity. I always suggest, not to get too complicated with the financing instrument, but I always suggest that the SB 504 debenture, which we'll discuss a little later, is a good alternative in terms of utilizing financing for acquisition of commercial property. Under that particular program, you have a certified development corporation financed through SBA directly puts in 40%, commercial bank puts in 50%, that's 10% equity injection. And those funds can be put in through Invest Atlanta's programs as well. So I think we covered the main highlights. Let me see, after 10 years. Okay, so I think this is an excellent program. If you're looking at trying to buy, and one of our interests is trying to make sure that people who've been in the community for a long time, who never had a chance to buy the real estate their building is in, now can have an opportunity to do that, or to acquire property within these low mighty income census tracts areas to make that become a reality. Because one thing that I know for a fact, we all know this too, is that one thing that is not being made anything new of is land. And so whoever controls the land controls who goes on the land, who stays on the land. So we want to try to empower some of those legacy buildings, the businesses that we're talking about and working with over the years to be able to have a chance for the first time maybe acquiring the building they're in now, or at least stay in the community that they've been in for several years. Ashley, next slide, please. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of detail on this, but basically just to show the fact that we have been in this game for a long time. And one of our success records is that we try to identify areas of opportunity. So whenever we have an opportunity, or the city has an opportunity to assist small businesses, Invest Atlanta wants to be in the forefront at the table with the city to empower the small business community in the city of Atlanta. So the first program, that Atlanta Micro Enterprise Loan Fund, which used to be the street vending program, it was expanded by the city to increase from $3,000 to $5,000. It's a fixed rate, and the fixed rate is is 0% fixed rate, and also comes with a 6-month deferment on those. This is basically geared toward streetcars and cities, locations in the city of Atlanta that qualify for the program. And as a matter of fact, this past year we had about 6 additional businesses actually got approved and funded through this particular program as well. But it's a good opportunity for someone who is in the street vending business to get financing directly through Invest Atlanta from the city of Atlanta to help them to grow and expand their particular operation. The second one is Atlanta Forward Loan Fund. So Atlanta Forward Loan Fund was an idea of us saying, well, we've got all these incubators, accelerators, workspace facilities around the city, and a lot of those operations have people in there that actually need financing, maybe for the first time, to actually elevate their business to another level of activity. And so we developed this program in conjunction with those entities. So it's geared toward, and it's between $5,000 and $20,000. Interest rate is fixed at 2%, and it comes also with a 6-month deferment before the first payment is even due. And you keep me mentioning deferments, but see, in West Atlanta, we were deferring our loans way before the pandemic hit. So this is no new game for us. We have built our programs around the ability to be able to assist as many of these needing businesses throughout the city of Atlanta as possible. Community Loan Fund, this is a fund this is actually money that came from the general funds of the city of Atlanta that enabled us to, for the first time, develop a program that could retire high interest debt. Up until this program was established a few years ago, we could not actually pay off debt. But this program here was set up intentionally to be able to assist those people. This was set up too right before the pandemic hit, by the way, as a matter of fact. And so it allows you to get up to $30,000 if needed to pay off existing debt. And you can also cover your regular business needs, such as acquisition of commercial property, renovation, equipment, furniture, fixtures, and working capital, all part of what you could do through the Community Loan Fund program. Now, the next one, I call this a godfather of our program, which is the Business Improvement Loan Fund program. This is money that comes from HUD, and money that's actually federal funds that allows us through the city's application process to HUD to get money for small business assistance to assist businesses in low mod income corridors around the city of Atlanta to qualify for this program. It's open, but it's also open for you if you are a existing commercial property owner or someone wants to buy property in these corridors. We can also finance you as a business owner of the building itself. I know a few years ago we financed a block really in the Westview area. It was 10 storefronts. We put in $20,000 into each one of the storefronts for side improvements, interior improvements as well, at an interest rate of 2% back then. So this could be used if you identify some project areas that needs to be renovated. We still have funds because all of our programs revolve back into West Atlanta's financing mechanism we have in place. These funds revolve back in, and so we want people to stay in business. Number one. Number two, we want you to pay us back, so together we can pay it forward for the next needed business person that needs assistance. The Phoenix Fund program. This is money we've gotten from EDA, Economic Development Administration. We originally got the money back in, I believe it's like 1995, but because, and the key word I keep mentioning is revolves, because it revolves back in, we get money, we still have money available in that program that was initiated back in 1995. It's changed back to the regular format. It provides a third of financing of the project from the Phoenix Fund through Invest Atlanta. The other 2/3 has to come from outside finance, could be bank finance and leveraging funds like that, where the 2/3 will be coming from a financial institution. Right now, the rate is at half prime plus 2 financing. And as I mentioned, the other gap has to come in from the private state. That could be additional equity money that you're putting in, or it could be bank financing that you're bringing to the table. And we would subordinate our financing to that situation in the second position. Let me say this too, that we don't have a problem at all if we have to subordinate our financing to a commercial bank. Matter of fact, we encourage that. A lot of our programs, we look for leveraging. How can we best leverage the available resources that the city of Atlanta has given us an opportunity to put out to the businesses in the city of Atlanta. Next slide, please. So continuing the conversation, so the Atlanta Catalyst Fund. So we always, like I mentioned, we're always looking for ways to identify new funding sources. So one of our subsidiaries called Amy we approached them. They deal with new market tax credits. We approached them about getting some financing that was other than federal money, other than city money. And over the years, they have actually made available to us over $1 million in financing to finance several projects in the city of Atlanta, the Atlanta Capitalist Loan Fund. And that fund goes up between $50,000 and $100,000 in financing. It's based upon it seeks creation of economic development. Job creation activity is very important for that particular program, and definitely a service to distressed neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta. The Opportunity Loan Fund. So once again, we were looking at ways to identify new funding sources that we could identify that would help us be able to make larger scale financing available to our projects in the city of Atlanta. So we went to the city council. City council approved the establishment of the Opportunity Loan Fund. I think initially we got $1 million in that particular situation program. And I believe we've got pretty close to that same figure right now available as we make loans. And the key things, we want to finance your business. We want you to stay in business and want you to pay us back. And because that's taking place in this particular program, it's got up. I think we got pretty close to maybe $600,000 to $800,000 to revolve back in that we have right now. And I put program there, but it is geared this way. So if your project has to be at a minimum of $100,000 and it's leveraged dollar for dollar. So yeah, this is geared to a company that's looking at expanding. Maybe you want to add on additional staffing, management team, have in place a retirement package and healthcare coverage part of that. So this is geared to a person not kind of trying to just start for the first time, but you're already in business. You need some help getting to the next level. So we can give you up to $200,000. If you need $400,000, for example, we can provide you with $200,000 in financing subordinated to probably a bank, or if you put new equity on the table, maybe you can bring in some other equity partners in. That could be matched with the money we've got here through the Opportunity Loan Fund. Now, the Empowerment Zone program, kind of not to dwell too deeply in it, but the Empowerment Zone, the city of Atlanta was one of the Empowerment Zone cities selected back in the 1990s under the Clinton administration. The city received $100 million in financing and Empowerment Zone money. And fast forward to 2010, there was still $40 million that hadn't got out of the city. And there was a deadline. The city would either use all that money up or it would just go away. And so I was finally able to get $3 million of that $40 million to establish the Empowerment Zone program. It was two programs at the time. One was a loan program, which we'll discuss right now. And the other one was a facade, a forgivable grant program. And I provided financing up to $100,000 on that for rehab. And that was very successful, as a matter of fact, over the years. And everybody, as long as you maintain your property for 2 years, like we're doing now with the Wells Fargo money, there was no repayment money required on those particular projects like that. So right now, the Empowerment Zone, we're looking at $50,000 back up to $200,000. Now, also with the Empowerment Zone program, the money is available to you as a commercial property owner in these corridors as well. So you could be a commercial property owner, someone looking to buy commercial property and needing financing to do that, renovate your building, that sort of thing is all eligible cost items covered by that. Interest rate between 0% and prime +2. Right now, we're looking at making that rate pretty close to 2-3% would be the maximum rate we look at on that one. It could be lower than that based upon the particular situation involved. Next program, I kind of hit on this already a little bit, the SB 504 loan program, up to $5.5 million interest rate based on a 10-year Treasury real note, offers financial assistance for small, medium, and female-owned businesses in the city of Atlanta. And so, like I mentioned, 50-40-10 breakdown on that one. And once again, on that one is that the money comes from 50% will come from the private sector, primarily probably a commercial bank, And the CDC, in West Atlanta, we used to be our own certified development corporation. And so we, for over, I don't know, over 25, 30 years, we were actually doing a lot of these deals directly before we got some restructuring taking place. So we're very familiar with how it works. And so the deal I mentioned before, we financed that the property on the 504 in downtown Atlanta involved a office complex of an engineering firm that wanted to acquire a building. And they came to us on trying to figure out ways they can make it happen. The total project cost $3.2 million. We were able to bring a commercial bank to the table on the project. We also brought in the CDC to the table in terms of working with this particular client. And there was a 10% equity injection requirement, which would have been $320,000. But because we were participating with our money, we put $100,000 in and took a third position behind both the bank and the SBA in a third position to make that happen. But the good news for the business operation is that about maybe 7, 8 years later, they actually sold that building for $7.2 million. So that's a pretty good difference there between $3.2 million and $7.2 million. But also the main thing they did too was that because they only occupied 51% of the space, which is allowable in the 504 program, they could lease out the other 49% of this office building to other tenants who basically were enough, the rent roll was enough coming in to actually cover all the debt service on the project. And when we did our analysis on the company, we were able to identify that information just in terms of showing the financial entities involved with the project that because it was a 504 and they had a rent roll, the debt service ratio analysis was really high in terms of being able to cover the debt service and all the finance. Okay, it's my last slide, I think. I'm over time. Okay, let me finish. Okay, so okay, this slide here shows you some of the history from 2001 to 2022. We closed 351 loans, $19.3 million, leveraging $64.3 million and other financing involved. Businesses in many sectors have been financed. And you see here, Woody Watkins funeral home, pencil factory development project. We've got White Oak downtown, Laco River Salon, and we've got the Southwest Experience off of, actually that's off of Calverton Road by Greenbrier, and Trophy Barbershop, 04 Ford. That's in the Auburn Avenue corridor area, and How Crispy Chicken. Just some of the business that we financed and utilizing during that time period. Next slide, please. All right, so we've got 2022, this past year, we had 30 loans that actually closed for $1.4 million. A total project cost $3.7 million, and it covered seven different industries across all council districts. Next slide. Okay, just a kind of glimpse here, some of the franchises I mentioned, the Popeyes, Supreme Mr. Light. So we have a good track record of financing a lot of different franchises throughout the city of Atlanta, including the first Wendy's. We actually, drum roll please. So we actually we financed the first Wendy's franchise to come to Atlanta in 1982. So, and expanded from there. Before we financed that first one, it wasn't a Wendy's in the city of Atlanta. Next slide. Okay, you see myself, Lonnie Sabor, director, and Cynthia Freeman, assistant director. We just added on 2 additional good, strong loan officers too as well. Alicia Gotson and also Richard Tolbert, doing an excellent job, expand that team by 50%. So we now have 4 people now working on a small business team within economic development to continue the growth and development of small business programs and entities in the city of Atlanta. And we look forward to, number one, getting some applications from you through our programs. I think that's my last slide. I turn it over to Maya Jackson.
Perfect. Thanks, Mr. Lonnie. Good to see everyone today. Like Lonnie said, my name is Maya Jackson, and I serve as the Business Retention and Expansion Program Manager here in Atlanta. So that just means I'm helping support small businesses get connected to resources and funding and anything else they may need. And today I will be sharing with you about opportunity zones. So I first wanted to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page that we are talking about state opportunity zones today. So I know some of you may have heard of federal opportunity zones, but this is a program that is specifically in Georgia, all across Georgia, not just Atlanta, throughout all of the Georgia counties, and it's run by the Department of Community Affairs. So what exactly is an opportunity zone? Well, it's a state statutory incentive, which means as long as you meet the qualifications and you're in one of these designations that you see in the red, then you are eligible for this incentive. And the actual incentive is a job tax credit that you'll file when you file your taxes as a business, and you get $3,500 per job created back when you file your job. So you don't just get it for 1 year, you get it for up to 5 years, totaling about $17,000 per job. So the minimum qualifications that you have to meet, you have to be a business, you have to have 2 or more employees. Those employees have to receive full benefits. And again, you have to be in one of these designations on the right. So you might be wondering, who decides these areas? How do they get formulated? What's the process? That's a pretty good question. So we work hand in hand with DCA to come up with these designations. Next slide, please, Ashley. So when we're coming up with these designations with DCA, they're looking for specific things. So the purpose of an opportunity zone is to revitalize the community. So it's areas that have been historically underserved or disinvested, and they just haven't seen the development that other parts of town may have seen. And this tool is meant to spur growth in that area, bring new businesses, attract economic diversity, and make sure that there are good jobs and good quality businesses coming to these neighborhoods. So when we submit these designation applications to DCA, they're looking for areas that have a poverty percentage of 15% or more, areas where there's significant underdevelopment. So like I said, you're not seeing a lot of influx of new businesses. You're not seeing a diversity in businesses. You might be seeing the same types of businesses come up, and not really anything that's serving the community. So we're seeing significant underdevelopment, and we're also seeing distress and blight. So blight may mean the property is not being maintained. There's a lot of code compliance issues, graffiti, damage. They're not repaving their parking lot. They're not upkeeping and maintaining the property. So when we submit those designations, this is what DCA is looking for these neighborhoods to have. Next slide. Thank you. So as a business, how do you take advantage of this tax credit? So once you find out maybe your address is in a designation, and I'll drop the link in the chat for how you can figure out if your business is in the designation, we have a 1-page form that you'll submit to the Invest Atlanta office. We'll complete the rest of the form. So we'll do the census block and the parcel number, and then we'll send it on over to DCA. DCA reviews it, they take a look, they confirm that our information that Invest Atlanta has provided is correct. And then they will send you, the business, a letter saying, hey, you are certified as being in an opportunity zone. Please provide this letter when you file your taxes. So you only have to do it that one time. Or I'm sorry, you only have to apply with us one time. And then every year when you file your taxes, you will use that same letter to continue to file your taxes and take advantage of the tax credit. Next slide. And so you're probably wondering, do we actually see some good results from these opportunity zones, and are people taking advantage of them? So on the slide, on the left-hand side, I have 3 different examples of places where we've seen a spur of development and a lot of economic growth in opportunity zones. One of them is Summerhill. So if you're familiar with the old Turner Field Stadium, now Center Park Stadium, where Georgia State plays, there's a lot of growth and development there. And I would say partially in part to the Summerhill Opportunity Zone. So this block where Publix is and the future multi-tenant center is, that whole block is a part of an opportunity zone, and all of the businesses there will be able to take advantage of the job tax credit. So at Invest Atlanta, we really use this as an attraction tool to get businesses to come to different parts of town and places they might not have previously explored. And on the bottom, another good example is Lee and White Street. So that's in the West End, and there's a bunch of growth there. It backs up to the Beltline, but all of those businesses that are in the Lee and White development are able to take advantage of that opportunity zone tax credit as well. So I think this is my last slide. If you guys have any questions, I can be reached at njackson@Invest Atlanta, and I will toss it off to Jeff Morris.
Do we have Jeff with us today?
I don't see him on the participant list.
I can help talk about ATL in business.
Yeah, go ahead, Maya. Thanks for that.
Sure.
I
So-
think we can, if you come to a spot, you get stuck on this color, and I think some of us could fill in too.
Perfect. So ATL in Business is one of our technical assistance programs. It's funded by ARP money, which is American Rescue Plan. And it's really a free resource that all of our City of Atlanta businesses who have business license can take advantage of. So I don't know if you heard me, but it is free. This is one of the biggest and best tools that we have here at Invest Atlanta, because you are able to get services like legal services, marketing, website assistance, business plan assistance, help applying to grants. You're able to get that from ATL in Business at no cost to you. So we contracted people like Operation Hope and Atlanta Business League and the Urban Business League, and all of those consultants are providing the service to you for free.
Yeah, I can add a point to that too. So in addition to what Maya just said, we got some additional money that's really set aside through ATL and business also to assist you. If anybody decides to apply for finance through any of our loan products and has a problem with the application process, as long as you have a City of Atlanta business license, you can actually go on the portal and actually ask for additional help on the segments that you might have a problem with. And that's also at no cost to you. So it's really to encourage you. Over a period of the last year or two, we see people that actually start the application process but don't complete it. They have problems with things and that sort of thing. So now, for the first time, we have an actual professional people to assist you with navigating with whatever problems you might have a problem with, be it the financial situation, management, whatever the issues are. You have an opportunity to go to this portal here and get assistance from people who can assist you to finally, as I always say, push the submit button. And before we can do anything with your project, we have to, number one, download everything in our portal neighborly, and make sure that you push the submit button. I won't tell you how many people I've talked to, especially when we with the grant situation going on, where they waited and procrastinated on it. And by the time they got ready to push the submit button, the program was over. And so I want to encourage everybody, because it's a free service. If you got a City of Atlanta business license, need help with the application process, we can definitely help you with that as well through this particular portal.
And one more thing I wanted to add, we did have a new program launch as a part of our ATL and Business initiative, and it's called ATL and Business Marketplace. So if you are a diverse supplier of goods or services and you feel like you've had trouble with visibility or getting connected with the right procurement offices or contractors or getting contracts, the marketplace is really the solution to that. So it is an online portal where buyers and suppliers can go and connect with other people who are looking for their services. And I dropped the link for that in the chat. So this is Jeff and Melody's information. Feel free to reach out to them if you have questions about either of those programs.
Okay, so besides small businesses, we also wanted to focus on individuals that are in our city. So when we understand that technology, as it advances and workplace strategies evolve, there comes a need for our at-risk group to be equipped with the tools to ensure that they are adequately prepared in terms of knowledge and skills. Hello, my name is Monique Carter. I am the program manager of our jobs program for vulnerable population. This program is a new initiative of Invest Atlanta to help the underserved and underrepresented individuals to rebuild, recover, and thrive in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. The objective of this program is to assist our marginalized and disadvantaged City of Atlanta residents, including individuals that may be experiencing homelessness, underemployment, unemployment, or those previously incarcerated into becoming job ready. So you may ask the question, well, how exactly do we do that? Well, by helping them to secure paid work experiences, apprenticeships, and to obtain middle wage jobs ranging from $40,000 to $80,000 annually in salaries. Our partnership is with Goodwill of North Georgia, and they deliver the bulk and specialized workforce-oriented training and development. They also provide our supportive wraparound services as needed according to the participants. And they also have available stipend payments that help or assist the participants as they are in training as needed. The specialized occupational skills training that we offer are CDL certifications and IT Salesforce certifications. We've just completed our first 2 cohorts in both of these areas prior to 2023. And we're off to a good start when it comes to 2022 to make sure that we are servicing those individuals that we consider to be a part of the vulnerable populations. And we are located, our hub office is located at Goodwill of North Georgia, which is on Metropolitan Parkway location. And we're located in the Career Center. So we definitely encourage you, if you're business owners and you're looking for employers, we have hiring events, or if you are skilled individuals that are looking for employees to get certifications, or if you know of people that would benefit from the services, we definitely encourage you to seek us out at the Goodwill of North Georgia location, Metropolitan Parkway. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So now is the wonderful Q&A. There are a lot of questions in the chat, and I'm just going to ask you all to raise your hands, and then we can just acknowledge you all, and you can ask those same questions if they did not get answered directly in the chat. So let's start with Ms. Proler.
Hi, I'll try to make it quick. 2 questions. One, who is responsible for ensuring that community engagement is authentic and timely, so that it's not just like what color do you want this building, but what kind of a building do you want? So authentic community engagement, and then also what can be done to provide incentives to make sure that, jobs are created for people in Atlanta, so that these Invest Atlanta projects don't bring in people from the surrounding counties, but benefit taxpayers here in Atlanta.
So good evening again, this is Jennifer. I can chime in. I have a couple thoughts on both questions, and then some of my other colleagues might as well. So the robust community engagement, that's a big question. So we obviously have a minimum kind of requirement, for our programs, and our different programs have different requirements. So on the TAD side, we have a built-in community engagement process, in that each of the TADs, when they were created, there was a corresponding TAD advisory committee that was created for each TAD, and those TAD advisory committees are composed differently. Each of the TAD has different composition, but by and large, they're made up of the corresponding MPU reps, as well as sometimes there's community business associations, faith-based associations, nonprofit, but they each have kind of different representation. And we present funding requests to those entities prior to taking projects to our board. For our other programs, we require applicants to go through the NPU process. We want to make sure that they present their project and that they are intending to request funding assistance from Invest Atlanta. We want them to make that presentation to the NPU, and several of the NPUs that we've worked with kind of, takes the position that they want before the NPU itself hears about the project. They want that project to go first to the corresponding neighborhood association to kind of do the same thing, let the neighborhood.
But what happens when that doesn't happen? Like, who's accountable? How do we make sure that this happens? Because it's after the loan has already been promised, and
if it doesn't happen because it just was never started, or that it's been presented several times and the NPU maybe has not made a decision.
Well, when either it's not, they don't publicize the community engagement, or they come to us at a stage where it's past planning and they really can't make any changes in the plans. It seems to me a lot of community engagement is done just to check the boxes on your forms, and not to really find out what people want in their under-resourced communities that are being targeted.
Sure, and I think that obviously is a large kind of area of work. Different developers do it better than others, absolutely, and some developers, are going about it to check the box. So, and it kind of depends on different projects, right? If a project needs to get variances or rezoning, there at least is some built-in structure in terms of the path that those projects need to take, and that conversation needs to happen earlier rather than later. But we don't control that kind of the rezoning or the variance process. So our responsibility thus far really is trying to drive the conversation with developers that, our committee and board structure is an open kind of public process, and we and our board want to help incentivize projects that the community is supportive of, and we will look more favorably at that. So that is a conversation that we're always having with developers, but I'm not gonna kid you by saying that we're achieving phenomenal community engagement success. I can just tell you that is an area that we're constantly trying to drive home with people who are interested in applying for our funding. But we know, different neighborhoods, different NPUs see, different levels of success with that. And that's just an area we're continuing to work on with developers and folks looking to get funding assistance from us.
Great. Can you go real quickly into how you can create jobs for people in Atlanta?
So we have for several of our programs, in particular for providing funding assistance, grant funding assistance to companies. We will typically have, job creation targets and requirements in our grant agreements and in our loan agreements. And we have, compliance team that is overseeing that those goals have been met. And a lot of times if those goals haven't been met, obviously there's clawback provisions. It is very difficult and challenging to track that, really consistently. So we've scaled up our compliance, and we've gotten a lot more involved in the nuance in the grant agreements to specify exactly what we're talking about. Because for a long time, we've had requirements about just job creation. But to your point, really driving home job creation from within the city as being very important. And so we have been including that in our agreements. And those are things that we track. And I think probably won't put it in the chat unless I can find it, but I think as a follow-up, we have our year-end report that we just completed that identifies that data. And so you can see what we're tracking. And so year over year, we'll get better levels of specificity, but you can see those are data points that we are tracking, and hopefully we'll see, that growth.
And if I may, Jennifer, chime in on that to reinforce, we also make it a requirement as far as eligibility requirements. So the jobs program for vulnerable population is specifically to participate in that. You have to be a City of Atlanta resident. You have to be able to show proof of residence. So the providers that we work with, they have a checklist of items that they have to be able to prove prior to an individual entering any of those training services to make sure that we are servicing residents in the City of Atlanta.
I can add too that for our redevelopment grants, so it's going to be funding a construction project. Those grant agreements require that the contractors advertise those construction jobs to, for example, in the Eastside TAD project, so to residents near and inside of the Eastside TAD, and we reference, local partners that can assist them with that. And I have conversations, with folks who are, moving towards construction to say, who do I reach out to there? Who else can I communicate with to get these construction jobs advertised locally? So we have those formally in the grant agreement, and we do have those conversations to make sure it gets done as much as possible.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, Jennifer, during your presentation, you made the comment that you thought we were fortunate to have as many TADs as we do in Atlanta, which I found rather odd, because my impression had always been that we were overburdened with tax allocation districts and that we had something in the high teens percentage of our tax base currently sequestered in TADs. I wonder if you could elaborate on that, and a related question, what is the current status of the relationship between the East Side TAD and Atlanta Public Schools?
Sure. So Georgia state law says that taxing jurisdiction can't have more than 10% of its taxable value within TADs. And so at the time the last TAD was created, it was basically up at that threshold, so just shy of 10% within the TADs. You gauge success of TADs in large part based on the growth within the TAD. So you absolutely want to see the taxable value within your TADs increase over time. And so right now we're at about 17% of the tax base is within the TADs. So that means we can't create any new TADs, which the city's not in a position of wanting to do that anyway, but that is good to see growth within the TAD. So that is definitely not a bad thing. And as I said, that the TADs have a life. They're intended to close. So we anticipate 2 closing within the next one with this year, Atlantic Station, most likely by 2025, Eastside TAD, potentially in 2030. So they will continue to run their course and close. And then, that increased tax generation from within those TADs will go back to the taxing jurisdiction. So when Atlantic Station ideally closes in 2025, it's increased in value, astronomically. So that new tax revenue will go back to the all 3 taxing jurisdictions.
You said ideally, but that's actually late for Atlantic Station, isn't it? Isn't Atlantic Station behind schedule?
A little bit behind schedule, yeah. The bonds were anticipated to be paid off by the end of 2024. The forecast on the tax projection within the Atlantic Station TAD was less than projected. So we anticipate now it being able to be paid off. I think it's October of 2025. But yeah, you're exactly right. And so APS and the Eastside TAD through a TAD agreement, they are participating in the Eastside TAD. But their portion, they get a pilot payment basically reimbursed back to them each year. So for all intents and purposes, the APS portion within the Eastside TAD goes back to APS and not used to fund projects.
And they're currently receiving that?
Yes.
Samantha went to sleep.
Are we moderating? Do we have more questions?
Samantha, next person.
I'm sorry, it was
That's
unmuted. April Bankston.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation tonight. I have one question. As a person who inherited her parents' family home in the Atlanta area and have some siblings who are currently staying, is there any programs that help with legacy families? I guess with some of the upkeep and renovations. The house was built in 1950, I believe. And so you can imagine, of course, I don't have the type of tax cushions, I guess, with homestead, because I do have another home that I have. And so I'm just curious, are there any programs, I guess, who can help with legacy homes that haven't been sold, that have, like, again, inheritance, and we're just trying to make it, continue to make it livable and sustainable for my other folks that come behind me, I guess. So.
Yeah, and I think I can chime in on that. I think of the current programs that we have, I think our owner occupied rehab program is the one that gets the closest. But what I hear you saying, based on the circumstances, that particular home wouldn't qualify for that program. I'm trying to think through all of our programs that we have for individual homes. But I think that's the only one we have right now that is available to do those types of improvements, but it obviously has an eligibility requirement. I'm not sure if anybody can think of anything else, but I can't think of anything that we currently offer.
And the reason I'm saying this, because it may be not this group, but I think there needs to be some consideration to those families who don't necessarily live in the highest, wealthiest communities, but we are still trying to maintain what our forefathers, fought so hard to give it to us. And so even with the taxes going up now twice, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, that I have to go down and try to contend it and things of that nature, but nothing has been coming into the city, or at least where my neighborhood is, to substantiate what I think larger taxes. We haven't had a grocery store. We don't have other stuff. I typically, if I'm going to pay taxes there, I still have to go outside of my neighborhood to do the business. So I just want to know how we're reconciling that, if you will.
Okay. Nicole?
Hi. Okay, so I have a couple questions that really pertain to the Invest Atlanta funds when it comes to developers. So I wanted to get some clarity on which incentives would allow developers to do for sale buildings instead of just rental, especially when they're in an opportunity zone, because it seems that they tell the community that they're limited on what their availability to build is. And also when a developer is coming before the community, the MPU, and they want more time to discuss with the developer, but the developer says that they have a set date for their review with Invest Atlanta, are we able to push that date at all by requesting through the developer or through the MPU to give us more time to negotiate and discuss what the benefits would be with the community from that developer?
Yeah, so we have several different programs that can provide funding for sale property. So on the tax allocation district side, we have programs that are open in 3 of our TADs, East Side TAD, West Side TAD, and Perry Bolton TAD, that can provide funding assistance for sale property. I think it has to be for the creation or redevelopment of at least 3 single family for sale homes. But that is an area, and we have provided funding in the TAD for sale properties. And I know on the housing opportunity bond side, Vicky allows for funding assistance to for sale as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And it's actually gap financing, Nicole. It's really not like 100% right. They still have to come up with some other financing, but we do have, at this time, I think it's closed. We might be oversubscribed at this moment, but we do have some gap financing available.
And then to your question about the community engagement and needing more time. I mean, we have a timeline for when applications come in and what review committees we need to take funding requests to in order to get them approved. So we have that structure, but the developers know that structure, and they know that they have to go, through this community engagement process with the NPU. So they should be backing into that and allowing that time for, a couple. It's can be a pretty iterative process. A lot of times it's not just one meeting. So we don't really set the time frame for that. We just say, we want to be mindful and respectful of the community. So we want you to go through this process. If the neighborhood wants more time, that's kind of a neighborhood level conversation. We typically aren't driving that time frame.
Okay, and then if you don't mind, one more. So we've seen in our community developers that are requesting funding and they get denied by the neighborhood as well as the NPU. How can we find out if they're actually being granted that funding? And is there any additional voice that the neighborhood can make other than the letter of recommendation from the NPU?
So the projects that come to Invest Atlanta to our board for approval, they're all publicized on well, first the meetings are public, so you always can attend the meetings. But the actual activity, the vote, if you will, and what was approved is posted on our website and on board docs, and we can drop that in the chat and also provide the link to Samantha, who can send it to you. So it should be very transparent there. Obviously, ideally, we get a letter of support from an NPU. Sometimes, NPUs may not be completely in support of projects and have, some concerns and some conditions. Sometimes we get letters directly, to Invest Atlanta from the NPU, identifying certain things about certain projects that they'd like to see. So it's completely within the NPU and the neighborhood's purview to communicate, its thoughts about a project to us, aside from, just that presentation process.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Philip Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, at the beginning of the presentation, a lot of programs talking about funds for developing of housing. And I'm just curious, I know I've heard stories of there used to be a lot of neighborhood development corporations, and we don't see as many of those. And so just kind of curious, are there still a lot of neighborhood development corporations that you work with that you see coming through to create affordable housing in our neighborhoods? With all those different funds related to affordable housing, are those being engaged with to a high degree, or is it like there's a lot of funds and there's so much room for people to still engage with those funds and build more affordable housing?
So there's never enough funding to build affordable housing, especially right now. We need a lot of housing just across the board, and construction over the last year has gotten crazy expensive. It's very complicated and costly to do these deals. So there always could be more funding, just my blanket statement. But there are definitely still CDCs. I couldn't tell you kind of the cadence of new ones being developed, but there are some pretty long-standing ones that, they've been around for a while that we've worked with decades ago that, I've been working with the past several years in Invest Atlanta, and we've provided funding to historic downtown development corporation, CDCs on the west side, and in town that we've worked with. So they're definitely still around. They definitely play a key role in helping bridge gaps between community need and where resources are, to help neighborhoods that might not have the capacity from within to do that. CDCs, play a pretty big role there. So we absolutely work with them and recently and provide financing for projects. And we've done small multifamily primarily redevelopment projects, renovation of, 6 plexes or 8 plexes, all the way up to, new construction of 100 units of multifamily with CDC. So it really just depends on the capacity of a particular CDC to see what they're proposing.
Mrs. Furlow?
I wanted to, my question in the chat was around the strategy for identifying businesses within the enterprise zones that may be eligible for those monies, but somehow the monies were left on the table. So I just wanted to know if, number one, I believe Mr. Lunny was the one that was speaking, addressing the monies, maybe about $40 million that was, left on the table. And I'm just wondering, is there not a more proactive strategy or process to actually, identify these small businesses or these in these enterprise zones, that are eligible for the monies and may not even know it. So I think that's one of my, that's one of the things that I'm concerned about, the education of, business owners, even knowing that these monies are available and somehow, using some strategy to help them get these monies to improve their business. So that's one of the that's one of the things that I was thinking of when he and his team were presenting. And secondly, I wanted to hear a little bit more about the owner occupied rehab. I believe Jennifer may have been addressing that, or there was a question and it was alluded, that project was alluded to. So I just wanted to have her to expand on that just a little bit more, please.
Expand on the owner occupied rehab program itself?
Yes, please, because I don't remember getting that enough information. So if you could just tell us what that is and what that process is for qualifying.
Sure. And I don't manage that program, so I don't want to speak out of turn. So we'll send a link. I can give kind of a high level, but we've got several different programs that provide funding for owner occupied rehab. Primarily, we have a citywide program, but I think those funds have been deployed. And then we have a couple programs specific to. We have a program in the West Side in English Avenue in Vine City, and we do have funding available there. We had another program with University Choice, but primarily to help provide, and the programs offer different funding amounts. In the West Side, English Avenue in Vine City, we can provide up to $60,000. I think the citywide program was up to $30,000. Again, I'm not the manager of the program, so, but I think I'm pretty close. But really to provide critical home repairs for income qualified legacy residents who obviously live in the home. They can claim homestead exemption on the home. That's kind of the primary eligibility criteria, but to provide critical home repairs to help keep legacy homeowners in their homes and not feel susceptible to kind of predatory practices of people, knocking on doors saying, hey, do you want to sell your home? So really as a way, to push back that kind of single family displacement, if you will. So we can provide the links to those programs so you can get kind of into the weeds of eligibility, but that's kind of an overview of what the program is intended to do and basic eligibility requirements.
And if I could interject also to let you know, right now we're not accepting applications at this moment. All the funds have kind of been, as I alluded to in the first presentation, we definitely had an overwhelming response to our applications for the owner-occupied rehab program. And it is a loan that is forgiven as long as you live in the home for the term. But just to reiterate, we are looking, hopefully we have some additional financing and we're just working through the logistics of that to relaunch. And that may be relaunched later on, maybe second quarter of this year. But again, I'm like Jennifer, we're not the managers of that program. But just kind of wanted to reiterate at this moment, the applications aren't opened up, but definitely look on our website for when it is, and you'll see kind of like some things come out about it, and we'll make sure that the MPUs will definitely, get the information.
Okay,
I dropped
thank
those
you
in the
both.
chat, so you can see those, and then there's always contact information for the relevant staff person on each website.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to include those links in the email that I send with the evaluation that I hope you all complete at the end of the course.
Thank you.
Philip Kelly.
Yeah, to echo one of the questions from the last person, I was curious as well. What does the community engagement look like for these business assistance programs? Just as an example, the city did a street resurfacing project and they only sent out postcards for community engagement. So one of the things that we did as a neighborhood association was we went door knocking. We engaged, more informal email and phone trees of neighbors. So that's more residential focus. But on the commercial side, do you all have, do you hold the business records, registrations, and contact people with their contact information they provide when they register for business licenses, or go door knocking for some of those loan and assistance grants?
Yeah,
Speak
so
a
I
little
can.
bit
Yeah,
about
go ahead,
the-
Ashley.
For
No,
for our grants.
yeah, go ahead.
You might be getting parched, Jennifer. Maybe you should get your soda water.
Okay, got my soda water.
No, thanks. Jennifer covers all of our bases. Yeah, so for some of our grant programs, I can speak to it, but it also, we utilize like a lot of our core outreach staff serve a lot of our programs. So we have different people who always are attending the different business associations, always doing outreach and hosting even webinars to share the broad range of, for example, business programs that we have available. But specifically, MPUV is an example. For that program, when we launch it, we're able to pull tax records. Business license data is available, but it can be a little bit spotty. We really do targeting, use those different data sources that can help us find those eligible businesses, and share postcards. Reach out to the local business associations, and then for when we had resurgence funds available, which were available to businesses in the city of Atlanta, there was efforts to go door knocking, particularly in areas that were not being very responsive. We can see where our applications are coming from and identify areas that we know have commercial corridors, have businesses, but we're not seeing as many. And Invest Atlanta has organized some door knocking in those areas, joining up with members of the business association also to help us, find those places where businesses are located and give us that local connection.
Yeah, I can comment too on the small business programs. I just had a couple. Matter of fact, had a meeting this morning with the West End Merchants Association. So we go out in the community, meet with associations. We network a lot with associations and leadership to kind of get the word out. And we found out to be very productive over a period of time. Just updating them on what's going on with Invest Atlanta. So we do that on a pretty much continual, regular basis, just to kind of keep everybody in the know about what we're doing, what's on the horizon right now, and just to kind of make sure they understand that we're here to provide as much assistance as possible. Small business products and to this businesses in the city of
Hey,
Nicole.
I have a question about the West Side.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Nicole's hand was up. So, but if you would like to get in the queue, you can raise your hand. Nicole, you go right ahead.
Thank you. I was wondering what participation nonprofits can do. I have a part of a board of a CDC in our community, and I was looking if they could participate in any of the grant options, especially ones that are to help redevelop any of our single family homes that we could then put for sale or for rent for low income housing, or for specific individuals, and also if they could participate in ATL and business as well.
I can answer that in terms of the small business programs. We have, I think about maybe 3-4 programs with the Business Improvement Loan Fund program is available for nonprofits. And also we've got the Land Recovery Loan Fund, a new one set up to be able to provide financing to not just home-based business, but also 501c3s as well. So those are probably I guess the two main ones that we've got set aside right now that can assist nonprofit organizations.
And then are nonprofits able to participate in the Atlanta business, the ATL in business program?
Yeah, I believe so. I know Jeff's on the line, but I believe that's correct. As long as they have a City of Atlanta business license.
Mm-hmm. The
I
business
think that's
license
true.
is key. And I think it's going to be like largely their business operations support. I think I did see a question in the chat about assistance applying for grants, and that's not something that's a skill set offered in the ATL in business, but anything related to the functioning of the business, I think would be eligible.
Yeah, definitely what I was thinking for Atlanta in business was more the functioning, as you know, I'm a couple years on the board and just trying to redevelop and reimagine what we could do for the community.
Mhm.
So perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, capacity building for sure, I think is an area to take advantage of.
Adrienne?
Yeah, is there any type of incentive to encourage development near transit? It seems that there is so much land available. It just seems transit-oriented development makes sense for Atlanta, and I don't. And I would love to see Invest Atlanta have a strategy for promoting that, and also promoting affordable housing all over the city, and not just, I understand developers can get land cheap down in southeast Atlanta, and it makes sense for them financially to buy it cheap there, get in an empowerment zone, get all these tax incentives from Invest Atlanta. But if we could get some up in Buckhead near Lenox Mall, so that the people who work in Lenox Mall can live near Lenox Mall, that would be, I think it would really help a lot of the congestion and transit issues we're having. Anyway, can you address that, please, somebody?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So you're preaching to the choir a good bit. So we want to drive investment in areas that are well served with public infrastructure, and public transit is a key piece of public infrastructure. So absolutely. We are a bit limited in where we have funding available to help incentivize development. And so the tax allocation districts are a primary tool that we use to help incentivize affordable and workforce housing at and near transit stations. And, we don't have tax allocation districts in Buckhead for obvious reasons, but we do have them, downtown. We have them in the north part of downtown. So, Civic Center. So where we have funding availability, and it's typically, geographically based, we absolutely are leveraging our dollars with other partners, be it MARTA, they're focused on TOD. We are working with the city to dispose of real estate around MARTA stations to be developed, with a huge part of that development being affordable and workforce housing. So, very much in line with your thoughts. That's where we want to drive those resources, because it is more, oftentimes, not always, but most times, more complicated, pretty much always more expensive to try to do it there. And that's where we want to drive our resources, because otherwise it's not gonna happen. But we're limited in funding where we can do it in areas that need it just as well, like Buckhead, but we just don't have the types of funding there.
Philip Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. And to respond to that last conversation, one of the examples you put there at the beginning of the presentation was March On, which is right across from King Memorial Station in Grant Park. And I did reach out to them recently, and their affordable housing is, you have to make, for one or two people, $40,000 to $50,000, and your rent is almost $1,500 a month. So, between that example and we heard on Pounce, near Pounce City Market, they were asking for some TAD financing, and I think you guys said no, and they built the anyway. I think we would really love to see more deeply affordable housing coming out of these tax districts as far as what's being invested in. But specific question is regarding the, okay, JPVP, and I'm forgetting what the acronym stands for, the Job Program for Vulnerable Population. I was just curious, does that program work at all with PAD, the Pre-Arrest and Diversion Program in the city of Atlanta? As they do diversion, do they collaborate to help with this, to guide people into this job training and placement program? And then would love to see the IT capacity building for the job training, especially as it's more of a tech hub here. But with the CDL license, I know that's one of the highest turnover industries with workers because of the hard labor conditions and low pay. So just some commentary on that. Thank you.
Is that a line?
Yeah, do we still have workforce on?
I don't know if she's.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm here. I wasn't sure if he wanted an answer to that or was he just a commentary?
For the question,
The
do you
question
all
about
work
PAD.
PAD? Yes.
So the jobs program for vulnerable population, that pretty much, like I said, we have a partnership with Goodwill of North Georgia, and they do have vendors that they utilize throughout the city of Atlanta. Now, whether or not PAD is one of their vendors, I could definitely find out. But they do work with a lot of re-entry programs. So they coordinate with, we try to coordinate with a lot of the major churches that are within the city of Atlanta, nonprofit organizations that, you know, assist with housing and skill training for those individuals that are coming back into the community. Up until this point, and as Jennifer said, we're going to encourage all of you to definitely go to the website because we did report a lot of these numbers in the annual. And up until this point, we've currently served roughly about 750, well, pretty much a little bit over 750 individuals. And we do break those down. So you could actually see what percentage of homeless, what percentage of unemployed, what percentage of re-entry individuals. We also attract veterans. So this year was our first year reporting for, like I said, this new initiative that Invest Atlanta started. And I'm really excited about what we've been able to do thus far in the community. And we do have another year, and I'm not supposed to talk about, but yeah, we're looking for bigger and better things to do with that will come out of this program.
Lauren Floyd.
Yes, I had the same question as April that she dropped in the chat, considering that there seems to be a huge need for owner-occupied support. Is it possible to shift some funds for this category and help, and so that the help is not just for business owners, but it could also serve property owners who are currently paying taxes?
So the primary funding source for owner-occupied rehab program came from the issuance of the housing opportunity bond from the city. So those aren't funds that would ever be directed for like the kind of business funding that we're talking about. So really it's a function of just there being greater need. And so it kind of gets to what Vicki, I think, was talking about earlier, that there is definitely conversation at the city about the need to get more resources and money to help for increased owner-occupied rehab, as well as increased funding for additional, multifamily, single family. So it's just a question of getting more money for all of those things right now. So the commercial, the stuff we use for the commercial is a different funding source, and kind of they can't commingle like that.
Yeah, so how would you go about getting more money for those owner-occupied programs?
So that's a conversation that the city and others are having in terms of leveraging and flexing dollars from other public and nonprofit entities, discussion about the city issuing additional housing opportunity bond debt. So all of those conversations are happening at the city level to try to explore all of that to generate as much funding as possible because clearly, there's a need. Our housing opportunity, citywide housing opportunity, owner occupied rehab program, I think was oversubscribed, very quickly.
Immediately, yeah.
Yeah. So there's clearly a need. And it's an everyday conversation about how to get more capital to get to folks who need it.
Yeah. So Ms. Floyd, just to reiterate what Jennifer was saying, at this moment in time, with the bond issue that we just issued in 2021, there is money set aside for the owner occupied rehab program. And that's the one that I said that'll be launching later on this year. We were just trying to make sure that we're good stewards of those funds and then finishing up some of the funds that we have already in the queue to be deployed with the existing owner occupied rehab program. So there are funds coming up that'll be for like what I consider like new money. And then applications should be opening up, like I said, hopefully in the second quarter, but it may be a little later on this year.
Okay. I think Mr. Hayes left out. Do we have any more questions? Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, just a quick question. Just curious, I didn't see it answered in the chat. I think it might have been Mr. Lonnie, but the term empowerment zone, I tried looking it up and I couldn't find. Is an empowerment zone the same as a federal or state opportunity zone, or what exactly is that referring to?
Okay, yeah, so what the empowerment, well, look, it's a history lesson right here. So back in the 1990s, the city of Atlanta was designated to be an empowerment zone city among a few other cities around the country during the Clinton administration. And so the city got $100 million of one of the selected empowerment zone cities in the country. The purpose of the empowerment zone was to empower certain corridors and areas in the city of Atlanta and have representation from the community involved. The problem came up when in some of the community groups, they wanted to decide who got the money. And unfortunately, some of them wanted to be at the table to get it. So this went back and forth for years in that situation. So fast forward to 2010, there was still the $40 million that was still available that didn't get out. And so the city finally, on my part, the city has finally agreed to let me establish two revolving loan funds. One was a facade grant, which I mentioned earlier, was actually converted to it was a loan. It was converted to a grant. Loans that over a 2-year period, properties maintained, which that was the case. So that went away. And then the $2 million I established the empowerment zone based upon the old empowerment zone guidelines and areas such as ML King from Laurie Boulevard, the Northside Drive. Then we had the areas around Edgewood and Auburn Avenue, primary areas. All the areas over there in the area around Old Pasco's area, ML King, the corridors and around that section over there were all eligible areas as well that we did. Now I did a few years ago, I talked to the city about trying to expand because the entity that actually established the empowerment zone no longer exists. So I was trying to expand the empowerment zone from just this limited thumbprint thing to the entire CDIA. And I didn't get any support for that. So right now that's where it stands. We are potentially contemplating maybe going back to that as a concept to the city to see about expanding those boundaries to be outside of where they are right now. But that's pretty much the history of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, it is 7:59 and I have just a small announcement in regards to our upcoming courses. First of all, thank you so much to the entire team of Invest Atlanta for coming and doing this, the kickoff of our economic development series portion of NPU University. I actually really learn a lot every time. So thanks personally for myself, but also the residents of Atlanta as well. Everyone else, oh no, how did I get here? Okay, wait, here we are. So for the remaining upcoming courses we have for NPU University, we have next week our parliamentary procedures course. It's March 1st at 6 p.m. That's next Wednesday. And it's actually with Todd Crowder, who is actually he's the parliamentarian of the Georgia parliamentarian group. So you don't want to miss this course. And then following that, we will have Avoiding Housing Scams and Reducing Property Taxes with Atlanta Legal Aid. And that's going to be March 9th at 6 p.m. And then our new course, Building Permits for Beginners. Registration is open for all of these courses, by the way. That is on a Thursday, March 30th at 6 p.m. And then we're going to reel back around with Invest Atlanta and with our Understanding Public Housing course, which is April 13th at 6 p.m. So yes, Vicki, you all are back again. Mr. Martin, you have a question?
Yes, one of my colleagues, MPUD, said that she had tried to register for parliamentary procedures and got waitlisted. Is that class overfull?
Oh, it may be, but I can open it up.
Okay, well, the reason I ask is sort of twofold, because I think it's one of the required classes to get a bonus on the CIG grants, is it not?
Right. So yeah,
So it would be kind of unfair to deny someone the bonus for not attending a class that you won't let them attend.
No, I literally just said I can open it up. So
okay.
All right. So thanks everyone for participating tonight, and I hope to see you in the future. If you want more information about any of our courses, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NPU Atlanta, and also on Nextdoor at City of Atlanta Neighborhood Planning Units. Thanks so much tonight for coming, guys. Good night.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Go
God
get
bless.
dinner.
Thanks. See you next week.